Richard Nixon ate cottage cheese with ketchup on purpose, regularly, for years. Ronald Reagan went through so many jelly beans that his inauguration required 3.5 tons of them, which isn't a figure of speech, that's a weight. Somebody had to move it. Joe Biden kept a freezer of ice cream upstairs in the White House and openly admitted it was one of two things anybody knew him for. And Donald Trump's presidential comfort food is something you can order by name right now at about 13,000 counters across this country. But go back 70 years, and the President of the United States was keeping his own beef stew recipe, handwritten, scaled for 60 people. So, 13 presidents, 70 years, and the very American journey from a pot on a stove to a paper bag with a logo on it. And along the way, I'm going to kill about 4 food myths you've definitely read online, because roughly half of what's out there on this topic was invented by somebody who needed a fact. Let's start with Dwight Eisenhower, because he's the last president who genuinely cooked. And I don't mean he stood behind a grill for a photographer for 90 seconds. I mean he cooked. He collected recipes, revised them, argued about them, handed them out to friends. The man had opinions about technique. His presidential library still holds his personal cookbook, and inside it are 2 things with his name on them: his vegetable soup and his beef stew. The stew recipe is written to serve 60 people, 60, which tells you everything about how a 5-star general's brain worked, even after he'd taken the desk job. 20 pounds of stewing beef, onions, carrots, potatoes, and then hours, genuinely hours, of letting the thing sit on low heat and become itself. There's nothing clever in that recipe, no technique you'd film. It's the culinary equivalent of a man in a cardigan telling you to be patient. He liked his steak too, and he liked it rare. There are stories about him grilling up on the White House roof, which sounds invented but is one of those things the staff talked about for years. And Mamie, by all accounts, handled almost nothing in that kitchen. The cooking was his, but it's the stew that matters, because the stew tells you exactly what food was in 1953. It took an afternoon. It came out of a pot. Human hands were involved at every single stage, and nobody, anywhere, had put a logo on it. That's not a quirky fact about a guy who liked cooking. That's a photograph of a country where if you wanted something to eat, a person in the building had to make it. Hold on to that. Everything after this is that idea slowly falling apart. Now, straight after the general comes the most glamorous president America has ever produced, and his lunch was soup. The Kennedy Library is surprisingly blunt about it. Kennedy loved soup, and the one that comes up over and over is New England fish chowder, the milk-based, potato-heavy, deeply unglamorous kind he grew up on in Massachusetts. Not bisque, not consommé, chowder, the stuff you crush crackers into. Lunch was soup, a sandwich, and some fruit. That was the whole event. And here's the part that genuinely surprised me. The library notes he ate so little that staff sometimes had to remind him dinner existed. All that Camelot, the tuxedos, the state dinners, the most photographed table in the world, and the man himself was running on chowder and forgetting to eat. One more thing, and it matters for the rest of this video. The Kennedy Library goes out of its way to warn people about this exact topic. There are a dozen dishes floating around online with his name attached, and the archivists will tell you flat out they can't verify most of them. That's a presidential library saying, "We don't actually know," which is more honesty than you'll get from most videos on this subject. Then Lyndon Johnson goes the complete opposite direction, because Johnson worked out something the others hadn't. You can use eating. Out at the LBJ Ranch in Texas, the Johnsons threw enormous outdoor barbecues, ribs, brisket, open pits, smoke you could see from the road. And the guest list wasn't neighbors, it was senators, ambassadors, heads of state. The Park Service still marks the grove of oaks where it happened, which tells you the scale. That wasn't dinner, that was diplomacy with a paper plate in your hand. And it worked because it is very hard to stay formal with a man while you're both holding a rib. But what he actually liked to eat, privately, was quieter. His library keeps a list put together by the people who fed him every day. And the thing at the top isn't brisket, it's chicken fried steak with mashed potatoes and cream gravy. Then cornbread, grits, deer sausage, Mexican food. So barbecue was the image. Chicken fried steak was the man. And that gap between the food you perform and the food you eat comes back in a big way in about 5 minutes. Which brings us to cottage cheese and ketchup. I know how it sounds. Your instinct is to assume some blogger invented it in 2011. They didn't. There's an oral history recorded for the Nixon Library in which Stephen Bull, a man who worked directly for the president in that building every day, describes it as Nixon's typical White House lunch, cottage cheese with ketchup on it. And you have to understand what cottage cheese meant then. This was diet food. This was what you ate when you decided, grimly, to be sensible. It's a bowl of damp white curd that tastes like a compromise, and Nixon's contribution to it was ketchup. The library's own menu records back the habit up. On his last full day in the White House, August 1974, the walls coming down around him, he had cottage cheese with pineapple. That's the image I can't shake. The leader of the free world, in the worst week of his life, eating diet food out of a bowl. After that, Gerald Ford is almost a relief. His library just lists it plainly, no drama. Favorite food, pot roast with red cabbage. Favorite dessert, butter pecan ice cream. That's a Sunday dinner in Grand Rapids, Michigan, being served at 1600 Pennsylvania Avenue. Pot roast isn't a dish you show off with. It's a dish you make because it's Sunday and people are coming. After Nixon, the country got a president whose menu looked exactly like your grandmother's, and I'd argue that was the point. And then there's Jimmy Carter, who everybody immediately wants to make a peanut joke about. I'm not going to. It's the easy story, and it's the wrong one. Henry Haller, the White House chef who actually stood in that kitchen, remembered what Carter really went for: Southern fried chicken, barbecue, and above everything else, anything made with corn, grits especially. Baked cheese grits show up constantly on the family's menus, and the Library of Congress holds the Carter family cookbooks. In one of them, a Plains cheese ring is described in print as his all-time favorite. If you've never met a cheese ring, sharp cheddar, mayonnaise, and pecans molded into a ring with strawberry preserves in the middle. It is aggressively Southern. It is not health food. So he's not the peanut president. He's the grits and corn and cheese president. Rural Georgia breakfast moved into the White House more or less intact, and this is the exact point where the whole thing changes. Reagan started eating jelly beans to get off his pipe. That's the origin, a private habit, a substitute for tobacco, something to do with his hands while quitting. Then he became president, and it stopped being private. Shipments started arriving at the White House on a schedule. Jars appeared on the cabinet room table. Everyone in Washington knew licorice was his flavor, which is an unhinged thing to prefer, and I want that on the record. And for the 1981 inaugural festivities, 3.5 tons of red, white, and blue jelly beans were supplied, the story being that the blueberry flavor was created specifically so there could be a blue one. Think about what just happened. Eisenhower had a recipe. Reagan had a product. That's the entire shift in one piece of candy in under 30 years. And once food is branding, it's a very short step to food as marketing. In 1988, America was told George H.W. Bush loved pork rinds. It ran absolutely everywhere, and you can see why it was irresistible. A patrician New Englander, Yale, Kennebunkport, who snacks like a guy at a gas station off I-95. Perfect, relatable, completely on message. Then, years later, in a tribute collection published by his own foundation, a reporter finally said the quiet part out loud. Bush was talking up pork rinds while what he actually preferred was popcorn. Popcorn, the single most inoffensive snack available to man. The snack wasn't a preference. The snack was a strategy, which makes the broccoli thing look completely different too. In 1990, he announced he'd hated broccoli since childhood, he wasn't eating it anymore, and being president of the United States meant nobody could make him. American broccoli growers responded by shipping tons of the stuff to Washington in protest, which is possibly the most 1990 sentence in this entire video. At the time, that read as a president being charmingly stubborn. Now it reads like a man who'd worked out very precisely that what you say you eat is a way of telling people who you are. Bill Clinton, meanwhile, had an appetite that was a national punchline. The burgers, the jogging, the whole routine, a running joke for 8 years. But in 1998, somebody asked him directly, on camera, during a broadcast to Japan, what his favorite dish actually was. He didn't say hamburger. He said chicken enchiladas, and that's its own quiet piece of history, because by the late 90s, a Mexican-American dish was the most unremarkable answer an American president could give. Nobody blinked. That's how completely that food had become simply American food. Now, you will read all over the internet that George W. Bush's favorite food was cheeseburger pizza. The people who actually fed him say something else. His aide Blake Gottesman, asked to name one category, said Tex-Mex, and Christetta Comerford, the White House executive chef, the woman running that kitchen, remembered the same thing, and remembered turning out thousands of tamales every Christmas. Thousands of tamales. That's not a preference, that's infrastructure. So if you've got cheeseburger pizza lodged in your head from some list video, that's exactly where it came from, a list video. Barack Obama told CBS his favorites included pizza and chicken wings, and when reporters tracked every lunch he actually left the building for, burgers won by a wide margin, including the afternoon he took the Russian president to a burger place in Arlington, and they both ordered at the counter like anybody else. The chili is real, by the way. He said he made a good one, and Michelle publicly backed him up, which is the highest available form of verification. It just wasn't his favorite food, it was the thing he could cook. Those are different, and the internet has spent 15 years mashing them together. Joe Biden didn't need anyone to report on him. He put it on the record himself. In a 2023 speech, he mentioned eating Jenny's chocolate chip ice cream and keeping a serious supply upstairs. Then, in the same speech, he joked that ice cream and aviator sunglasses were the only two things anybody knew him for. He wasn't wrong, and crucially, he wasn't unaware. That's a president using his own food as shorthand for himself, deliberately in front of a crowd. That's Reagan's jelly beans, 40 years on. Which brings us to the end of the line. At a McDonald's event in 2025, Donald Trump said he liked the fish sandwich, asked for extra tartar sauce, and referenced ordering Big Macs. And there are government records of the fast food spread laid out in the state dining room for the Clemson football team in 2019. Hundreds of burgers, fries, and silver bowls, candelabras lit, the room done up formally, serving food that arrived in paper bags. If you want one image for where this 70-year story ends, that's it. Silver, candlelight, and a stack of wrapped burgers. One note for accuracy, though. Those enormous, hyper-specific usual orders you've seen quoted, the 2 Big Macs, the 2 fish sandwiches, the large shake, those mostly come out of Aide's books, secondhand. Take them with salt. But the McDonald's itself is on the record from him in a transcript. So here's the distance we've covered in 70 years. Eisenhower's food required a pot, an afternoon, and a recipe that existed in exactly one place, one man's handwriting. Trump's food can be ordered by name in under 60 seconds at a counter that looks identical in every state in this country. Presidential eating didn't just get more casual, it got branded at the same speed and for the same reasons as everybody else's did. And that's the part I keep coming back to. Not one of these men was unusual. Eisenhower ate the way America ate in 1953. Reagan ate the way America ate in 1981. The presidents at the end of this list eat the way we do right now. The White House never led any of it. It just followed the country into the drive-thru, about 10 years behind the rest of us. So, which one actually surprised you? Or is everybody just pretending to be surprised by Nixon at this point? Tell me in the comments. And if there's a president you think I got wrong, tell me that too. Because on this topic, about half of what's online was invented by somebody who needed a fact.